Okay, today's daf Be'ezras Hashem is daf Chaf Ches. So we're going to continue on the discussion of yesterday. We're going to finish that discussion, and then we'll do a nice Mishnah and a little Gemara, and that will be the daf. So just to recap, we're going to start from daf Chav Zayin on the base, but just to recap over here, here's the picture of a stack of coins. And just to recap, what we've been discussing so far is that there is a halacha l'Moshe Messinai. Halacha l'Moshe Messinai is not so intuitive. It's just, you don't ask questions and you just follow the halacha l'Moshe Messinai. And that is that if a man was a Nazir and he completed his Naziris and he set aside a stack of coins, and he says, from these coins, I want to bring my karbanos Naziris. What are the karbanos Naziris? We saw already. You bring, well, let's just get the picture up. So you bring a male sheep for an oila, a female sheep for a chatas, and a ram for a shlomim. So a man, instead of buying the animals, he left over a pile of coins. Now, because he left over a pile of coins, when he dies, if he died and didn't get a chance to bring that as chatas, and he didn't get a chance to, decide what, how to spend that pile of coins, we take all these coins, the halacha l'Moshe Messinai says, and put it in the pushka to buy a carbon oila. That is the halacha l'Moshe Messinai. Very important, because it's not so intuitive, because within those coins is a chatas. That part of those coins was supposed to purchase a chatas. But a chatas, if a person dies and didn't bring the carbon chatas, the person dies and did not bring the carbon chatas, then we automatically throw either, if he'd left over money set aside for carbon chatas, we would throw it into the Yam HaMelech. So why don't we say we throw all these coins into the Yam HaMelech? The answer is that's the halacha l'Moshe Messinai. Again, hi Luz, we just began. The halacha l'Moshe Messinai says that if a person dies and leaves over a bunch of coins from where he wanted to purchase his karbanos naziris, what we do after he dies is just throw it into the pushka in the Beis Hamikdash, and they bring carbon oila with it. We're going to learn another thing, and this is very relevant, Sheldon, because of your site. Let's say a father who was a Nazir. A father was a Nazir, and he died. And he left over, but he didn't get a chance to bring karbanos. He left over animals that he was going to bring for a carbon Nazir. So the son cannot say, oh, I'm going to be a Nazir, and instead of buying new animals, I'll just use my father's old animals and bring that as the carbon Naziris. Halacha Moshe Messinai says you can't do that. But if your father left over a bunch of coins, and he was going to buy his karbanos naziris, but didn't get a chance to because he passed away. So then the son who becomes a nazir, he doesn't have to shell out new monies to buy when he finishes naziris. He doesn't have to shell out new monies to buy karbanos. He can use the coins that his father left over. That's why I'm just pointing that out, because that's going to come up today. Okay, so we're beginning on Daf Chav Zayin is about like 14 lines from the bottom. And you know what? It's so Daf Yomi has its coincidences, and the whole Daf Yomi, the beginning of the Daf Yomi, talks about what can you benefit from your father. So the Brisa begins. Masiv Rava. Rava asked the question. Rava asked the question, and this is a question based on Rav Nachman. Rav Nachman's opinion is that even if your father did not leave over coins, but let's say he left over an animal that has a mum, let's say an animal that has a blemish, which you can turn it into coins by selling the animal. Even there, the halacha l'Moshe Messinai says, Rav Nachman extended it, that the halacha l'Moshe Messinai says that you would sell the animal and take all the coins and bring it as a carbon oila. It wasn't just said by a pile of coins, if your father left over a pile of coins, but even if your father left over an animal that has a blemish, and because of that, you can turn that animal into money. So then the halacha Messinai will also kick in according to Rav Nachman, and you will bring those the exchange of selling that animal. You would bring the money that you sold the animal for as a carbon oila. So let's read it inside. Masav Rava. Rava asked the question. It says in the Brisa, carbonoi. You have to pay for your own carbon. So bekarbonoi hu yoitze, the ein yoitze bekarbon oven. You have to pay for your own carbon. You can't just say, oh, my father passed away and he had a carbon that he's not using, so let me use that carbon. So no, you have to, if you did an Aveira, let's say a person was Mechal Shabbos by accident, and his father left over, let's say, an animal that he was going to bring as a carbon chatas, but he passed away. So you can't say, I'm going to use my father's animal. No, you have to pay for your new carbon. So the Brisa says, Yochel, I would have thought, Lo yetze bekarbonai shel aviv, you cannot be yaitza, fulfill your obligation by using your father's, because maybe your father did not, his carbon chatas is not the same as your carbon chatas. Maybe your father shehifresh min akala ala chumura or min achamura ala kala. Sometimes there are two different types of carbon chatas. One type of carbon chatas is for, let's say, if someone's mechal Shabbos, or if a person's mechal Shabbos, that's a very severe avera because there's misa skila by mazid, Bezdin kills you. So that's a very severe carbon chatas. But sometimes the father did an avera, which is a light type of carbon chatas, where let's say he ate chalev or he ate blood, he ate the fats or the blood, where there is no misa Bezdin if you did it on purpose. So the reason why I say you can't use your father's carbon is because if you didn't do the same type of avera, you cannot use your father's carbon. If he did a light avera, you can't exchange it for a severe avera. Or he did a severe avera, you can't change it for a light avera. Because, okay, your father left you over the wrong type of chatas. Maybe I would have thought, yoitze bekarbon shefer shaviv. You could do yoitze with whatever your father left over if you did the same type of avera that your father did. Let's say your father ate blood and he died and left you over a carbon that he was going to bring as a carbon chatas, and you also ate blood. I would think that you're allowed to use your father's carbon. Or let's say your father was Mechal Shabbos and he didn't bring the carbon, and you were Mechal Shabbos, so you both did the same severe avera. Maybe you can use your father's carbon. Minakala ala kala, minachamura ala chamura. So the pasuk says no, carbonoi. It says that again, carbonoi. You have to pay for your own carbon. Becarbonohu yotzev and yotzev becarbonoviv. You can't rely on your father. You have to hold your own straps and say that no, you can only be yotze to get a forgiveness only if you pay for the carbon yourself, and you don't get a forgiveness using the carbon that belonged to your father. Fine. Next, Yochel, I would have thought lo yetze bekarbon aviv b'behema afilim and akalam and kamen chamura. You can't use your father if your father left you over an animal. If your father left you over an animal, then you can't use it. Why? Because same thing. Sharei ein adam megaleach al behemes aviv b'naziris. Let's say your father was a nazir, and he left over animals. And then the son decided to become a nazir. The son cannot use his father's animals. That's the halacha. So anytime your father leaves over an animal, you can't say, I'm gonna use his animals. So therefore, that's why if he left you over the animals, it doesn't work. But I might think, if your father left over a pile of money that he separated that he was going to pay with this pile of money, a carbon chatas, I might think that since he's not using it anymore because he passed away, you're allowed to use it. Because why should coins be different? Because there's another halacha l'Moshe Messina that says that if your father left over a pile of coins, that's what we're talking about. If your father left over a pile of coins, your father was a nazir, and he separated coins because he was going to buy from these coins, all the karbanos naziris, and then he passed away. There's another halacha l'Moshe Messina that says that if your father leaves over the coins, the son can use those coins to pay for his naziris. So we see that you could inherit the coins from your father to pay for your own karbonis as it pertains to a nazir. So I might think that if your father separated coins to bring a regular carbon chatas and then passed away, the son can use those coins to pay for his own carbon chatas. So I might think that could help. The only time you could inherit your father's coins for Naziris is only if he didn't specify. If he specified it, forget it. You can't even inherit those coins. But we see that there's a concept of inheriting coins that your father separated for a carbon naziris. So I might think you could inherit coins that he separated for his chatas, that you could also use those. So Talmud Loima, so the pasuk says, "Bekarbonoi." The pasuk says "karbonoi," which means that you could only use his. You can't use the carbon. You can't use the coins that he left over. Only you have to pay for it. The Eina Yoitze Bekarbon of, if you're not Yoitze with the carbon of your father. So far, this is a very long brisa, but we'll get to a point in a moment. Yochel, I might think, you can't use monies that your father separated. That doesn't work. You can't inherit anything from your father. If your father left you animals, you can't use it. If your father left you coins that he separated for carbon chatas, you can't use that either. Aval, I would think, yoitze the carbon shehifres la'atzmoi min akala ala chamura min chamura ala kala. Here's a good question. Let's say a person did an aveira. He drank blood, okay? So he separated an animal to bring as a carbon chatas, a female sheep, okay? Then he did a aveira of what? He did Mechal Shabbos. So he says to himself, listen, let me use this animal that I separated for the aveira of eating blood, I'll bring it for the aveira that I was Mechal Shabbos. How do you know that that's not good? Carbonoi al chetasoi. The carbon has to be specific for the avera that you did. So that the carbon has to be specifically geared for the chet that you separated for. So if you separated an animal to bring atonement, to bring it for an atonement that you ate blood, you can't now change your mind and say, I'm going to use it now for an avera of Chilul Shabbos that I did. No, once you separate it for this avera, you can't change it and use it for another avera. That's another drasha from the pasuk. Then, one more thing, and then we finish the brisa. Yochel, I might think, lo yetzi bebehema shehifris la'atzmoi min akala min achamura lakala v'kolshke min akala alkala min achamura lakhamura. You're not allowed to change the animals. Once you decided for one animal that it's for this avera, you can't even change it for an easier avera or a more severe avera, or even for the same avera. Listen, if you ate blood, and you separated an animal because this time you ate blood, and then you ate blood again, you can't use that animal for the second time that you ate blood and try to replace it with another animal for the first time you ate blood. No, whatever you separated the animal for, that's what the animal should be brought as a carbon. There's no changes. Shekain im hifrish habehem alachel. Let's say you separate an animal because you ate treifa fats, behavi aladam, and you decided to use it for the blood. Okay, Oy aladam behavi alachev, or you separate the animal for the avera that you ate blood, and now you decide to bring it alachel. That doesn't work, and that you really, if you did it, you didn't accomplish anything. Shaharei loy mo'al. You didn't get a me'ila. If you actually did it, you didn't get an avera of me'ila misusing a carbon, because at the end of the day, the carbon chatas is good. It's a good. If you switch it, the carbon chatas is great because it never loses its kedusha. But like keeper, you didn't get a kapara. You have to redo it again because you brought the wrong animal. You brought the animal for the wrong avera. So that's why it doesn't work. But I might think that in the following case it could work. Let's say I left over money. I separated money. I said, from this money, I'm going to bring a carbon chatas because I did an avera of eating blood. And then I used the money and buy an animal that I use the animal to bring a kapara because of a chilul Shabbos that I did. So I might think when you use that money and use it for the wrong and buy an animal that it wasn't originally designated for, there's a halacha that you get a carbon me'ila there. There you misuse hegdish. And because I misuse hegdish, I might think you get a kapara. I might think, okay, since I misuse hegdish, and because once you're dealing with money, that's called a misuse of Hegdish. If Hegdish has money that's designated for one purpose and you decide to use it for a different purpose, so you did a violation of Me'ilah. And therefore, if you did the violation of Me'ilah, I might think you get a kapara. So b'di'evet, if you use that money that was designated for your blood avera and you used it for, you bought an animal you bought an animal to bring atonement for the Shabbos avera that you did, I might think that it works, Shahare Moal, because you did an avera by violating Hegdish. The keeper, you should get a kapara. You don't get a kapara until you buy the carbon with the monies for its own avera. And therefore, even if any time I make a switch, even buying even with money, the switch doesn't work and I don't get a kapara. So ends the brisa. So, but there are a lot of information in the brisa, and we're just going to zero in on a partial quote of the brisa. In the very beginning of the brisa, it says, I'm just going to bring it up on the screen here. The very beginning of the brisa says that when a person has a father and he died, right? If your father left over animals, right? You can't now say, I'm becoming a Nazir on the condition I can use my father's animals as my animals to end my Naziris. Ein Adam Megaleach al Behemes Ava B'Naziris. So it says animals. So it's mashma, not just regular animals that your father left over, but even if your father left over animals that have a mum in there, animals that have a blemish, which cannot be brought as a carbon, you still can't use it. And actually, you have to get rid of it. So we see that animals that have a blemish are not like something that you can sell and bring a carbon oila. You have to actually get rid of it and destroy it. So that's a question against Rav Nachman, who said if your father leaves over animals that have a blemish, you can actually sell it and bring a carbon oila. That's what it says. Ketani mias. We have a partial quote. Behema, that if your father left over animals, you can't use it. Even if your father left over animals that have a blemish in it. Answers the Gemara, not so, tamima. Only if your father left over complete animals, then you can't use it. But if your father left you over blemished animals, then the son could use it. And if there's no son, then they would take all those blemished animals, sell it, and bring a carbon oila, just as if he would have left over a pile of coins. So the Gemara says,
can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Just quick. You mentioned earlier that if the father left over some coins that were designated for a korban chasas, for let's say eating chalev, or no, of violating Shabbos, the son could use those coins if the father died and didn't do the korban and change it over and use it for something else. Is that correct?
I would have thought so. That's very good. I would have thought that
because
it works by Nazirans.
Right, but not only that, it's also you're telling me that it's even if his own set of coins that he uses and he changes it for let's say he said he's going to do a one korban, he does another korban for the same set of coins.
I might think
it's Ma'ila. It's Mila. So Kal B'chomer, it would be for someone else's set of coins that was already designated as well.
That's correct. That's what the Gemara says. I would have thought that you could use your father's coins. So the pasuk says, no, the carbonoi who yaitza, ve'ena yaitza be'carbon aviv. You cannot use it even if your father left over coins. The only exception to the rule that you can use your father's coins is if he left you over coins, unspecified coins like this, that he said he was going to buy Nazir.
Unspecified. Okay, that makes sense.
Only Nazir.
That's like that's like a rechush, and you're taking it and you're giving an emphasis. That's okay.
No. But this is a halacha l'maisha Messinai. It's not. It's why would you say that only by Naziris it works? But let's say he left you over coins that he was buying a carbon chatas for an avera he did. Why can't you use those coins? The pasuk says you can't use those coins.
No, of course they're designated, right? They're designated.
No, right, but they're designated for a carbon.
But if they're designated for Naziris, it's no good. It's you're saying that that's no good.
I would think that it would be. I would think that
would be good.
The halacha l'maisha Sinai, which is not intuitive, says that it is good. You could use it. It is good. Even though within these coins right here, you have chatas mixed in.
Right. Okay, a chatas mixed in.
Mixed in, and yet
Okay, now I understand.
So, so the Gemara says, okay, so the Gemara says, so Aval Balas Mum, the Gemara says, if your father left over a animal that has a blemish, my Kistumi Adama, that's almost as if he left you over coins and you could use it. So my area, why does the Brisa use an illustration that your father left you over money? The Ketani Ma'i Shefras of it. Only if you left it over money could the son use it for his carbonas. Listening, let it also say balas mum. If he left you over a blemished animals, which cannot be used as a carbon, let it say that if your father left you over a mum animal, you could use it as your nazir carbonus. The son could use it as a nazir. Why does it only use the illustration of money, as only then the son could use it, not go one step further and say even if it was an animal, but if it has a blemish, the son could sell it and use the money to buy his own carbonus naziris. So the Gemara says the reason why it doesn't say it is because it's obvious. Hachinami, that's exactly what it is. The lemai chazir, what is a blemished animal used for? Lidmei, to turn it into money. The may, money, hainamois, that's the example that it used, money, or anything that can be turned into money. If your father left you over anything that can be turned over into money, and let's use another example, which the Gemara uses. Let's say your father left you over a bar of silver. If you can easily turn it into money, then the son would be permitted to use it. And as if the son becomes a nazir, or if the son doesn't become a nazir, you would just sell all that bar of silver and just buy one carbon oila, and that's the halacha l'Moshe Messinai part of that equation. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's go into a new Mishnah and a new topic. The new topic is that a husband, as you know, can nullify his wife's naziris. That's for sure, because if the wife is putting up not drinking with wine. But there's a time, again, you have to bring, a nazir has to bring what? 3 carbonas. Again, what are the 3 carbonas? She brings an oila, a male sheep for an oila, a female sheep for a chatas, and a ram for a shlamim. So now, the Mishnah says like this, Nizrak, a woman maid, she says she's becoming a nazir, okay? And then, Nizrak ola echem min adamim. Let's say one of the bloods, she slaughtered one of the animals. Let us say she slaughtered the ola, okay? And they sprinkled the ola on the blood on the mizbeach. At that moment, she's allowed to drink wine, because that's what our Mishnah holds. At that moment, you're allowed to drink wine. So, eina yachal lahafer. At that point, the husband cannot nullify the neder of naziris and stop her from bringing the other animals, because she's now permitted to drink wine. And she's not allowed to tamal mesim. A husband has no right to nullify any neder of his wife. The only neder that he can nullify from his wife is either it's a neder that causes her tsar, like not drinking wine or not taking a haircut, or we'll see another type of neder that's something that's intimate between man and wife. But once she's already out of the naziris by sprinkling of the blood, because now she can drink wine, the husband cannot be made for the neder. So according to the Tanakama, it has to actually have the sprinkling of the blood. That's what the Tanakama holds. Rabbi Akiva says, Rabbi Akiva goes one step further. He says, even if you didn't sprinkle the blood on the mizbeach, just by slaughtering the animal, the husband cannot be made for that neder anymore. Even though at this point she can't drink wine. So why would Rabbi Akiva say the husband cannot be made for the neder? Because if the husband's going to make for the neder, at that moment, say it's nullified, what's going to happen is we're going to have to throw the whole animal into the garbage, because you're not going to be able to sprinkle it, because it turns out the husband nullified the neder, and now she's not a nazir anymore. So that's why Rabbi Akiva says if you slaughtered one animal, and we'll see which animal it is, if you slaughtered that animal, then the husband cannot be made for the neder. Now, when do we say that a husband cannot he loses his right to pay for the neder, either because she's not a nazir anymore, but the kalachas hatahara, because by the animals that you bring when she's going to take that tahara haircut. In other words, she fulfilled her naziris, and now she's bringing those 3 carbonas to end off her naziris. But let's say she became tama and she's bringing animals and the carbonis, which is an animal for an osham and then two birds for a chatas and an ola because she messed up and she became tameh, and now she has to restart the counting of a naziris, then of course yafer, because he could be made for a neder. And why couldn't really a husband be made for his wife's neder when she's a nazir? Because a man could say, I have a problem. Doesn't mean I can't live with, but he has a right to say, he has a right to nullify any neder that causes her to be pained. Menuvelas means pained in this situation. And she's in pain because she cannot be metamala mesim, which means that nobody's going to come to her levaya, and also she's not drinking wine. So a husband could nullify those nedarim. So that's why a husband has a right to nullify the naziris of his wife. Rebbe says, af b'teklachas tahara yofer. Wow. Even after she could drink wine, let's say they brought all three karbanas, and now she shaved her head, right? And now what happens is the halacha requires a nazir to take a real baldy type of haircut, right? And take the hair and cook the shlamim with it. That's what we learned in the pasuk. So even after the bringing of the blood, and she can drink wine, he could be made for the neder and stop her from taking that haircut. Why? Because he could say, I cannot have a wife who, they take off all the hair. And I don't want my wife to take off all her hair, to take such a razor blade type of haircut. And therefore,
does that retroactively negate the entire Naziris, or that's just she doesn't have to do it?
Well, she doesn't have to do it. She doesn't have to do it.
But the Naziris still was retroactively in effect and everything.
Right, because
she gets credit. She gets credit.
Right, because we only learned that a chacham is oiker mafreya, but a husband is mikan lahaba. From this moment on, she's not a nazir. But what he does accomplish here is that although she's drinking wine, she doesn't have to take that haircut because she was made for that neder. Because he could say, "That's a neder. That's something I don't want her to do." And a husband could nullify a neder if it causes something that makes the husband repulsed by his wife. Like a woman who says, "I'm not putting on makeup," the husband could nullify that neder. Okay. Our Mishnah in the beginning of the Mishnah says that when can a woman start drinking wine? When can a Nazir start drinking wine? Even one drop of blood from any of the karbonas go on the Mizbeach, then already the Naziris is over. She could drink wine. And the Mishnah says, the Eina Yachal Hafer, that according to the Tanakama, he can't be nullified the neder anymore because he can drink wine. It's only Rameir or Rebbe who says you can nullify the neder up until the haircut, but Chachamim disagree with that, and we're going to see why. But anyway, so what is the Masnisen? There's a fourth opinion, the Loik Rab Lezer. Our Mishnah doesn't go according to Rab Lezer. The Rab Lezer, if it went according to Rab Lezer, Ha'amar, who said a woman, a Nazir can never drink wine until she brings all three karbanos and then shaves her hair and cooks the shlamim with her hair. Then the wine business goes off. So according to Rab Lezer, as long as she's usher in wine, the husband could still be made for the neder. So our Mishnah is not like Rab Lezer. The Rab Lezer, the kivin, the loy gilcha, as long as she didn't take that haircut, asira b'chamra, she's usher in wine. The kivin, the isla nivel, since she's holding herself back and putting herself in a situation of pain and stress, Matzi Meifer, he could be made for the neder. So our Mishnah is not like Rabbi Lezer. Rabbi Lezer says a husband can always be made for the neder until the haircut. But our Mishnah goes according to Rabbi Shimon, who says that a Nazir already is permitted to drink wine as soon as you you shecht an animal and sprinkle one of the bloods onto the Mizbeach, then the woman, the Nazir could drink wine. If she could drink wine, then the husband can't be made for the neder anymore. Now the Gemara goes to the Amud Beis. Tanaka will go to the Mishnah. Tani Didan Savar. Our Tana holds Kiva. So now, what's the machlokes between Rabbi Akiva and the Tanakama? Tani Didan Savar. The first Tana holds Kivin the Izdrik Ladam. As soon as you spray blood on the Mizbeach for one of the karbanas, let's say she brought the oila first, then as soon as she sprayed the blood, well, la'alta sharia b'chama, right away she can drink wine. And once she can drink wine, so then this neder has nothing to do with the husband anymore because she's not in stress anymore. And therefore he can't be made for the neder. So she continued to bring all the karbanos for less la nivel. So she's not in stress anymore. And therefore the husband has no right to be made for the neder. Rabbi Kiva Rabbi Kiva holds, even if the animal was slaughtered, let's say an animal was slaughtered, he cannot make for that neder. Mishum hafsakachim, because if he's gonna be made for the neder, turns out she's not a nazir anymore. What are you gonna do with the animal that you just slaughtered? So Chachamim took away the right for a husband to be made for the neder once the animal was slaughtered, because what you're gonna end up doing is throwing the animal in the garbage because she's not a nazir anymore. So the Gemara asks a question. Rabbi Zera says, why is that so? Why is that so? Let's say she shechted the oila. So, and now she's not a nazir anymore because the husband said, "I don't want you to be I don't want you to be a nazir." So then spray the blood not as an oilus nazir, as an oila nadava. Or if she shechted the shlamim, spray the blood as a regular shlamim, not as a shalmei nazir. And the meat can be permitted to be eaten. In other words, even if he would be made for the neder, you wouldn't throw the animal in the garbage. You just continue on and spray the blood not for a nazira type of oil or shlamim. You spray the blood for a regular type of oil and shlamim. Milay Tanya, didn't we learn in the Brisa that it works? Kifsei etzera sheshachten shloi lishma. The shlamim that you're supposed to bring on Shavuos, that you shechted it as a regular shlamim. Or you shechted lifnei zmanim, or you shechted it before its time, or la'achas zmanim, or after Shavuos. So it was really designated as a shalmei for Shavuos, a shlamim that they brought as a carbon sibor for Shavuos, and the Kohen shechted it as a regular shlamim. Hadam zarek, spray the blood anyway. You eat the meat. So vim hoysa Shabbos, if it was Shabbos, lo yizarek, don't spray it because you're fixing the animal. Vim zarek hutzal haktei meril erev. Then if you did, then b'di'evet it's good. But the point is that even let's say you shechted. So what we're trying to say over here, why did Rabbi Kiva say that the husband cannot make for the neder as soon as you shecht the animal? If he shechted, let's say the shlamim, he shechted the shlamim. Even if the husband is going to be made for that naziris, you'd still spray the blood on the mizbeach. Albeit it won't be called the shalmi nazir anymore. You'll be called the regular shlamim, and that would still make the animal kosher. You don't have to throw it out. So the Gemara says you're right. Amrei either shachat oila shlamim hachinami. Then Rabbi Kiva wouldn't take away the right from the husband to be made for the neder. But but the Mishnah is talking about kagon sheshachat chatas bereisha, that if you shech the carbon chatas first to the Tanan and Megillah Achim Shloshim Yotzim, which means that you could shecht any one of them first, and then you're permitted to drink wine. But here, if you shechted the chatas first, then you have a problem. Because if the husband is made for the neder, you cannot, chatas is the only exception, that once you don't have to bring the chatas anymore, you can't sprinkle it on the mizbeach anymore. So in that case, because the chatas cannot be brought like as a donation. Either you did an aveira and you need a kapara, or if you don't need the kapara anymore, you throw it in the garbage. So if a woman would shech the carbon katas, right, Rabbi Kiva hold that if we allowed the husband to be made for the neder, turns out, what are you going to do with that carbon chatas? Turns out she's not a nazir. You're not going to sprinkle it on the mizbeach. You're going to have to throw the whole carbon chatas into the garbage. So Rabbi Kiva said at that point, when she shechs the carbon chatas, the chachamim took away the right of the husband to be made for the neder, although at that moment she's still also b'yayin. So that was Rabbi Akiva's opinion, that even prior to spraying of the blood of the chatas, if she shechted the chatas, the husband loses his right to be made for the neder. Then we learned in the Mishnah that husband could be made for the naziris of his wife if she's still aser b'yayin and she's only bringing the karbanos tumah. And here's the point, and this will end. Reb Meir says that even if she could drink wine, let's say they brought all the karbanos, right? They brought all the karbanos, they sprinkled it on the blood. The husband could say, I don't want her to be a Nazir anymore. What does he accomplish? That now she doesn't have to take the haircut. And then why does he get away with that? Because he says that this neder is going to cause this neder of Naziris is going to cause her to take a baldy haircut. And I don't like a wife that has a baldy head. So that's why Rameir says you could still be made for the neder. As long as she didn't take away, do the haircut, he could still nullify the neder. Because a man could say, it's still repulsive for me, and I'm still, if something is beina leveina, he could still be made for that neder. I don't want a baldy head. I don't want a baldy wife. So why didn't the Tanakama agree with that? The Tanakama Amalak Rakano say, that's not devarim shebeina leveina. That doesn't cause the husband to be repulsive because she could use a peyanachris, which is a wig. So therefore, if she could use a wig, then the Tanakama will say that the husband has no right to be made for anymore. It's not considered devarim shebeina leveina. Rav Meir Save, he says he could still say, I don't like wigs. I don't like my wife with a wig. The peyanachris, if she uses a wig, it has a smell, I don't like it. And therefore, the husband still would have a right, according to Rav Meir, to be made for the neder, even after she's permitted to drink wine, up until actually she's supposed to take a haircut. He could stop that action by saying this neder I don't want because it's dvarim shebeino leveino. Okay.